Top Game with your host, Sammy Castro. Episode 21, MCSB Operations Chief, Master Gunnery Sergeant Vince Quinteros, a.k.a. El Cazador. Recorded back in February, but it's finally out. He and I go back to our time together at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California. The urban legend is Elizabeth and I named our second son after him. I'll neither confirm nor deny. In line with his pugilistic nature, Master Guns jabs back in our conversation about the fact that the podcast is deficient because I've yet to be interviewed. Point taken. It's in the works. We're currently addressing some gaps and shortfalls in audio quality, Top Game t-shirts and coffee mugs, as well as a website redesign and social media engagement with the audience. To facilitate, I've taken on a production assistant, my own young Jamie. To offset expenses, we've also set up a Patreon account, but we're still working through the details regarding tiered benefits. Any suggestions in that regard are more than welcome. Admin note, it's been my experience that not every unit has a professional library established. The Marine Corps Association manages a Commander's Unit Library program, which provides Marines the tools they need to develop as leaders and critical thinkers. You can find their website at mca-marines.org for more information. Disclaimer, the views and opinions expressed on Top Game are those of the producers and of the guests appearing on the program and do not reflect the views and opinions of the United States Marine Corps or the Department of Defense. Thanks for tuning in. The TRICARE representatives, because we were in the process of switching over to overseas and TRICARE overseas and all of that, and they went ahead and decided to go ahead and let us transfer over to MD Anderson instead of getting treated in San Angelo. And what that did was it allowed the family to be there. And then on top of that, Liz got some of the best treatment available.
Yeah.
So
she hasn't had any.
No, she's been great. She's had some screenings, she's had some scares, but for the most part, everything's good.
Did she get what's it called?
A mastectomy.
Mastectomy, yeah.
And she ended up getting a unilateral mastectomy with a tram flap. So they were rearranging furniture.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was rough, and it was a 14-hour surgery, dog. You know, and I'm sitting there in the waiting room, contemplating, what if I lose her?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know, we go back, dog, and you know what she means to me, the type of woman that she is. And I don't know if I've got the stomach, the courage, the tenacity, the ganas to finish up 20 years and raise my boys at the same time without her.
Yeah. So even, Saul Barajas, right?
Yeah.
Like, he lost a kid, his daughter in a fire, dude. Like, this was, what, I think 3-4 years ago, maybe? Maybe longer.
It was longer than that. Maybe longer. Yeah.
So, the second half of his career, he's held it together and, led Marines and all that great stuff. Like, I wouldn't even, with or without my wife or whatever, like, I wouldn't be able to do it, man.
Yeah. So the last time I was here, and now I'm kind of kicking myself in the ass because you just reminded me that he's here. I didn't link up with him, because even though he was one of our MLIs at DLI, he was in the Spanish school and Latin American school, and he understood, I guess, that I was a little bit older and a little bit about my background and where I was from. We just had a lot in common, and we interacted in a way that he didn't with most of the other Marines. And then when I had heard about what happened, I felt, when somebody experiences a tragedy like that, even if it's one of your close, friends, brothers, or fellow Marines, it's difficult to figure out or determine what's the best way to approach that, yeah. Right? And so for me, I just didn't say anything.
Especially with him, it's like,
yeah, because he's a very
he's got that stone wall.
Yeah,
in front of him,
he's a closed reserve dude, and so I waited until we were face to face, and I was here for, I think it was the Language Olympics in like 2014 or 2015. Mm. And so I went by the company and to go holler at him and Master Guns Tiffany and all of that. And I had some moments alone with them, and I just expressed to him, said, look, man, I said, Elizabeth and I, our hearts were broken, You know, because we got to meet her when she was a little kid in Monterey, and you know, just their family and what they were about. I remember the kids were running around. Enrique was just born, or Liz may have been pregnant still. I can't recall specifically, but I just remember the kids were watching like SpongeBob SquarePants and just running around the house and just being kids, you know, and being a family. And we had, you know, dinner at their place and all of that. But you know, it's just one of those things. It's hard to convey or express over, you know, a text message or you know, just a random phone call. And I hadn't talked to the dude in years, but it was something I feel like.
How do you receive it?
Yeah, like? I mean, we had a moment, you know, Los Mexicanos ahí en el mismo cuarto, like we were going to break down in tears. You know, his fathers, his husbands, you know, there's things that have transpired over the courses of our lives, and our careers that you know, it changes your perspective on things. And you're one in particular, though, because of your girls and Danielle. I've seen a change in you. I mean, I always saw how you were with your mom and your sister and sisters or sisters.
Sisters, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, you're a different animal in that environment. You're still you, but I see that other side. Like that one time we had, I think we met up for lunch in Alexandria or something like that. For, I don't know, it was your birthday, or I don't know what the occasion was, or they just happened to be visiting at the time. But you're a different person when you're around your family, but your daughters have changed you irrevocably. And for those of us who know you well, like the Sammy Castros, like the Pedro Wassermans and others, we've seen that change.
Yeah, it's almost, I compare it to like being put like directly in charge of a platoon or a detachment, for instance, right? Like,
it's funny that you make the analogy that you operationalize it.
The 3 years at Radbin, you know, my last Radbin tour, I went straight to the MUDET, right? No one knew me from Adam, and you know, I commanded my respect as a gunny, but I made it a point to earn it. And then did the workup, the MEU, came back, and then I was the company ops chief. And literally, I can say I was perfect for 3 years. Like, every aspect of being a Marine, being a man, being whatever, because I held them to the highest standard, you know, and especially with the detachment, though, because, you know, we get so close, you work with them so much, and then when we composite and you're at the MEU, and you have a MEU Sergeant Major, and you have other units, you know, on the ship or whatever.
Right.
Held them to the highest standard, man. And so my girls, like, they look up to me. My sisters look up to me. And, you know, that's like one of my worst fears, is letting them down, or, you know, one day them being like, oh, he's not what he was, or what he says he was, or what I thought he was, you know. He's smaller in real life, you know what I mean?
Well, we all are, though, right? I mean, to a certain extent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that. Like, you know that, right? And even especially now, it's like, you know, did you see Luis?
I did.
Yeah.
We spent some time chopping up. We had a really long conversation about podcasts when he found out that we were doing this thing.
He's a tech guy, right?
Yeah. So the first one he listened to was George Garcia.
I haven't heard that one yet.
And then the next one he said he was listening to was with Sergeant Moreno. And I told him, I said, man, if Moreno was with us at DLI during our time, I said he would have fit right. He would have been older than us, though, because he came in when he was 28 with a bachelor's degree, you know, a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You know, he would have been, but he would have been in our crowd.
Yeah.
Right. He probably would have had us all rolling on the mats too. So shape, form, fashion.
I would imagine.
So for those listening, what?
Oh, we're already going?
Yeah, man, we're already going.
What? Oh, shit, man. Just don't forget, you can't, November 1st or after, you can air this.
What's November 1st?
That's when I officially pin on.
Whatever. Everybody knows you're Master Guns. You're selected.
Well, actually, that's funny. I was joking about this in the office earlier today. I am the senior 2691 Master Sergeant in the Marine Corps right now.
For a while there, I was a senior 2674 Master Sergeant. There was only one of us. It was me, because there was something wrong with the way that I don't know if it was Willie's thing or if it was admin's thing, but I was.
You have to go to your admin to get that 91 added. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said that in the office today. I forgot how it came up, and then
I left it like that for quite a while.
I was like, I should put that on my signature block. Or it's funny, when I was at the OEG with all the master guns, a couple of master sergeants yesterday, everybody's voicing their opinion.
Everybody's got an opinion.
Everybody's got an opinion, and I wanted to, when I voiced mine a couple times, I wanted to say, well, as a senior 2691 Master Sergeant in the Marine Corps, I feel that, but no. So I was quickly reminded that it's like, yeah, but you'll also be the junior E9 for about a year and a half. And I was like, yeah, you're right. But it is what it is.
So how is that? How's it different? And for me, the jump from gunny to Master Sergeant was fucking huge.
It's even more exponential.
But it's subtle at the same time, though, right? He's like, I don't see it.
I don't see it. Around your peers in the closed room, only a couple master sergeants, not to me, but just to some of the older guys. A 19-year master gun select, and you have a 28-year master guns. It's just out of respect, regardless of rank.
Yeah.
Every now and then, a master sergeant would call a master guns, but it's all mutual respect, right? But around the battalion, when I go to Quantico, when I go to CPAC or whatever, around officers, they'll master gun sandwich you, and it's like, as a master sergeant, I mean, you're right. I mean, the shift from gunny to master sergeant is huge, but especially in a joint environment, you really see the difference. And if there's anything any master guns can do for the community, is literally throw your rank around, get involved, do the networking with the other senior enlisted, and it goes miles. Even if you did nothing, technically or policy-wise or anything, for the community, if you could just use your influence to take care of the Marines in your immediate charge, it's like you got 2 7-foot, bouncers standing behind you, it's
right.
Your word is bond, so yeah. It's good though. I like it. Still not used to it though.
So how'd the OAG baseball card thing go? Because, from a talent management standpoint, and I've heard it said more than once, isn't that what manpower does? What the fuck are we doing as the intel community attempting to influence that when that's Nick Watson's job, right? That's...
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean,
the Ogfield specialist and the Ogfield manager handle that to a certain extent, right?
That's what we've been doing, and that was kind of the consensus was, we're already doing it, and we do it in a way that only a community of 17 master guns, right? And, maybe double that for E8s, maybe a couple more. The mechanisms in place for sergeants major or another intel MOS that has, quadruple what we have, it could work, right? But in our community, you can't really apply those same measures. But again, we're already doing that. The way to monitor Ogfield specialists, some senior enlisted guys or some guys that have been around have input. Everybody gets a chance to submit their wish list and a, justification why you want to go there. Some of the time it's because of location and family.
Right.
But, you can't bullshit why you want to be the master guns at DCI or, at I Department or MAR4Com. Some of the bigger ones that, we potentially talked about boarding. But the general consensus was we're already doing that. We're already managing our talent pretty well, especially for what we're working with. There's only a certain number of eligible movers every year. So, if we move one guy out of cycle, then it just creates a chain effect.
That it does. Which is why I got it in early with Nick Watson. I want to stay on Oki as long as possible.
I told you last time I was down there and we were talking. It was like, unless somebody raises their hand. Yeah. They're like, Castro wants to stay there forever. So
fight me for it. Yeah, I am at that point. Fight me for Oki.
It's funny because I think maybe you saw it before you got there, or maybe you saw it when you got there. The writing on the wall, right? I know a lot of officers are seeing the writing on the wall, and they're starting to jockey for getting out to 3MEF or 3rd Rad or
be careful what you ask
for. No, but they know. Yeah. I mean, back in our era, the guys that were out in battalion command during Iraq and Afghanistan, those are the guys who are on stars now.
Right.
Right. And 1MEF, a lot of the guys coming out of 1MEF are the big dogs now. So I did hear,
I guess when I was at DIA going through training, so this is like 2012 timeframe, pivot to the Pacific, in little circles here and there, and conversations that I have with, guys up here at the fort and elsewhere, like that's the shift. That's what's downrange. That's what's ahead of us. But then it's taken a while, and I still don't think that we're doing our best in regards to managing our resources from a talent management perspective to just funding to equipment, training. None of that. We're not proportioned out the way we need to be, but I think you're right. The writing's on the wall.
Yeah, I mean, so I was part of a project while I was at I Department. It's called the LREC CBRIP Language, Regional Expertise and Culture Capabilities-Based Requirements Identification Process.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. Basically, it's a database that tracks any language, regional expertise, and culture requirement you can go to any echelon, up to a combatant command down to a platoon, right? And for the combatant commands, we go off of their responsibilities via DER. So basically like a radio battalion's core maps, right? Mm-hmm. And they factor in on the classified side, the numbered plans and all that as well. And there's different, but basically if you as PACOM are responsible, let's say outside of the numbered plans, you're responsible for certain requirements, whether it be security cooperation, whether it be humanitarian assistance, right? And then you kind of like a MCT, right? You start breaking down, right? So you start adding decimal points and you start breaking down into different echelons, and usually it's lower, right? You can go from national to tactical, or you can go from battalion, OCAC down to team, and you identify all the language requirements. So you could say for this MCT, right, to use Marine-friendly terms, in order to do security cooperation, we would need, in X country, I would need this many linguists at this proficiency level, 24 hours a day, on call or whatever. Anyway, so I did the road show to all the combatant commands with the joint staff and contract supporters. And what I noticed, I was there to make sure that nobody was speaking on behalf of the Marine Corps' intel requirements erroneously. And one, it was hard to pull somebody from their staff to get the right guy from their staff job in any combatant command to sit there for a week and go over their responsibilities. even when we did, the ones that did know the responsibilities, they would identify them, but it wasn't translating over to, let's say if there were intel requirements. Well, we need 40 linguists at this proficiency level. And that, breaks out into, well, if you need linguists to do this mission, they're going to need gear and radios and all that. And I immediately got the notion that there's a lot of requirements that either the combatant command is not aware that the capability is not there, or the supporting elements aren't privy to or aren't aware that they're responsible for supporting, right? Because they don't have the capability, they don't have the equipment. So the process was pretty intricate, really intense, but I think it really identified, especially in PACOM, the fact that we need to get together more often on a grander scale. We tried to, while I was at I Department, get some FaceTime at the Force Sync. I don't know if you've ever been to one.
I've not.
I've only been to one, and that was from I Department. And man, it was an eye opener. There's guys in the room that, for the next 5 years, know what unit is going where, down to the 1- whatever, right? Infantry battalion or, CLB or, CLB, whoever's going. And they know all the operations going on, and they're planning them out. And as you know, language is always, even intel, some aspects, is always an afterthought. And it's not something you can make or grow right away, right?
Yeah.
It takes forever. So the people at I Department now that are still carrying on, Ann Sagabil, I mean, she's running full steam ahead with that task of getting intel and specifically language to be a forethought, not an afterthought. So, but back to the original point, PACOM, I mean, that's where you're gonna get your star. That's where you're gonna get that bomb, or that E8, E9. Those are the front runners of all operations in the Marine Corps, in my opinion, and DoD.
We're still in love with CENTCOM, though.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I mean, until you get CNN, Wolf Blitzer, I don't even know if he's still out reporting, until you get guys out there in PACOM on the ground in the Philippines or fucking, in Korea or whatever, reporting from the ground and showing what's going on. It's not as sexy, It's not selling U.S. bonds, So, but. So,
let's switch up a little bit. So, when you got orders out of DLI when we were there together, it was well before when I left. At least it feels like it. And then you went ahead to 2nd Radio Battalion. And did you immediately go into the Muse teams, or was that just something that?
No, there was a training platoon where you'd work on Singars and set up OE 254s and just do basic. Basically, we had the radio operator's handbook,
right?
And I just came across that in a PDF form while at I Department. And I started forwarding it out to people, and I'm going to forward it to you because when you read through it, I don't know when it was published, but if you ever need a refresher in just, antennas, radios, ground wave, skywave, it's nostalgic, but it's like, it reminds you of your roots, and I recommend for shits and giggles looking over. So I showed up, and everybody was gearing up to go to Afghanistan. And I was like, I want to go. You might have been in the LRC with me in DLI when 9/11 happened, right? And it's kind of fresh in my memory. I think about it every time. I was in casuals.
We were in casuals. We were in casuals together.
So,
I was just pulling up, and me and Rick Jackson, Rick Jackson, I parked in the front. You know, there was that one spot in the front.
Yeah,
Yeah, you weren't supposed to use, but
that's when Major Sparks used to park his donated car that he commandeered after he commandeered it. But yeah.
Yeah. So I parked there. I got out, and that's when Rick Jackson told me. He's like, "Did you hear?" And I said, "No." He said, "We're being attacked," and I went to the LRC, and it was on the TV.
Yeah.
Or we go to the TV room. I don't remember, but yeah.
So we were there pretty early for whatever reason. We had it might have been field day. I don't know. We were there early. We saw the first plane hit, and we were like, "What the fuck?" And then second plane hit, and literally everybody looked at each other and said, "We're going to war." And I was telling someone this story the other day. It reminded me of like Starship Troopers, where they're like, "Let's kill some bugs" or something, right? Like,
yeah.
And we're all linguists. Half the guys there didn't even make it out, right? If you were in casuals, there was a reason why. You're either broken or you didn't have a clearance hold or whatever, right? You're a fucking serial killer or something. And a lot of them were the Russian platoon guys, so or the old Russian platoon.
Well, you gotta bring up old shit.
Hey man, we killers.
Well, not really, because they didn't kill her.
Well, they tried really hard. So I show up to second. Everybody's gearing up to go to Afghanistan, and I was like fighting tooth and nail. And they're, I want to go. And there's like, why would we send you? You know nothing. And it was true. I knew nothing. Yeah, I was a boot. I was a senior lance corporal, but I was still a boot. And I know because I started asking everybody what their data rank was. So, so they left. I was butthurt, and then ended up going up for Battalion, Marine of the Quarter, and I won that. Then I went to Division, Marine of the Quarter, won that. Went up to MEF, won that. And I was like a rock star, dude. Came back, like, this is 2 MEF, Marine of the Quarter, right?
Like, now, bitch, take me to Afghanistan.
Yeah. So, I'm in Alpha Company, yeah. And Lieutenant Iverson at the time, I think he's still around in one form or fashion. He was like, "That's Corporal Quinteros, man. Congratulations on winning 2 MEF, Marine of the Quarter. I need to send you to PMO for 6 months on a FAP." I was like, "What are you talking about, sir?" He's like, "Well, everybody else that is not on a MU or on a workup is either broken or pregnant. You're the only Marine physically capable of going to PMO for." I was like, "Sir, I just won 2 MEF, Marine of the Quarter. I won Marine of the Month. I had a dinner in my honor. I have, awards from every local business out in Jacksonville, It's like, yeah, he and I got along really well, and I really liked him, and I think he liked me. And he said, "Sorry, but you have to go." So I was in Muse platoon for maybe 2 months, and then I went out there. And then Jason Kendall, who retired as the warrant officer, Chief Warrant Officer 3, at the time was a staff sergeant. He was the Muse platoon commander.
I remember him.
3 months later, he shows up, says, "You're coming with us, dude." And he got me out of there. It took him 3 months to figure out how to get me out of there. Basically showed up with some other guy and handed him off. So I come back, start training, things are rolling. And then Iraq, kicks off. And they put together the dream team. It was Jason Kendall, Dominic Lovato, Cody, Natalie. I don't know if Steinbeiser was on that crew, but all the senior Muse guys. And I come back and I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, all those guys had, or at least 4 out of the 5 or 6 had intentions of getting out. They already made that clear. So I went into Captain Iverson's office, or Lieutenant Iverson's office at the time, and I was like, "Hey, sir, you need to send me to Iraq on this team because these guys are getting out, no continuity." I rattle off a list of things why I should go and not all these other guys. So he sat there, he listened to me, and he was like, "You're right. I was like, who's going to train the battalion, the platoon when I get back? So he pulled one of the guys off, put me on. Jason Kendall came in screaming at the captain, like, how dare you dismantle my team? This boot doesn't know his ass from a hat, whatever. And we're friends. I mean, we're hanging out, drinking on the weekends, whatever. But it rubbed him and a lot of other people the wrong way. And I was like, I don't care. Like, I'm going. So basically, I had to, claw my way into that deployment. And, man, it was an experience that, from a SIGINT side, just I&W at its purest form. From an experience side, working with LAR, those guys are a well-oiled machine. And I know from other experiences, pretty much all the infantry and combat arms units in the Marine Corps. I mean, we pride ourselves in being professionals, but these guys are fucking professional war fighters. Artillery, tanks, tracks, LAR. Holy shit, man. They were fucking awesome. And then I became a corporal. And a corporal in LAR might as well be wearing, 2 rockers at least, right? So it was a great experience. And I don't think I would have remained a Marine if I didn't have that experience, to be honest with you.
So that was like the Jessica Lynch scenario and all of that,
Craig
right?
Buckles. Craig Buckles was one of the linguists that helped find her.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
I do.
Another accolade on a SIGINT hat, or on a linguist hat. Yeah. I hung out with him just the other day, man.
So when I spent the night in your doghouse the other day, which is
couch,
the bedroom that you have downstairs when you can't make it up to your own bedroom, I noticed that she left. They both bought you. They bought you a book.
Yeah, it's like a trivia, United States history trivia.
You still need to get your citizenship or something like that.
Yeah, I could translate that to a couple languages and make some money off of it. Yeah, they came to my promotion. Pedro came out. Pedro Wasserman. He's the lieutenant in the Navy, in the reserves. Probably one of the oldest. Literally, that guy's old, man.
He's the same age as I am.
Yeah, but
he looks a lot older than I do.
He's old, man. That guy's old. I hope he's not listening.
He'll listen.
Yeah, I gotta put him on to the podcast, but
Jimmy the Nose.
Dave Sutton came out. Who else? Kat Pinnell came out. A couple other guys from Second came out, but yeah, man.
How'd it feel?
Felt great. Felt great having everybody together at one time. Nobody got in trouble. We came close. But yeah, it was good. It was good having them out there. I know you were out in the island, but there's no way you're gonna make it back.
Yeah.
There was some guys that I wanted to see there really see there, but only because these are people that wouldn't believe it unless they saw it with their own eyes. You know what I mean?
So I know there was a lot of people giving you a bunch of shit because you had a mishap right before.
Yeah, man. I blew out my Achilles, ruptured it completely.
Is that your first major injury whole time?
First, man. I've also was talking about this the other day. The whole time coming up as a young Marine, even a middle-aged Marine, and I'd hear guys younger, same age or older, say, "Oh, I can't do this anymore because of my back injury, or I blew out my knee doing this or whatever." I'd be like, I'd shake my head like, yeah, I get it. But in the back of my mind, I was always like, "You're full of shit, man. I'm 30 whatever, and I'm running circles around, my reconnaissance, team out here, out shooting them, out swimming them, out running them, whatever, It was a pride thing. It was always a competition thing with me and especially my junior Marines, but they kept me young. But yeah, man, I am fearful for the future, like physically, athletically, in the Marine Corps, especially. Like, I'm on limited duty now, first time, ever in 19 years. And I don't plan on coming back and running the O course or doing hikes. Like, I'll say, man, I'm gonna take care of my body, right? I plan on getting out. Everybody knows, at least my chain of command and a lot of people that I worked with at I department. Like, I plan on retiring at 21 or 22. This is my last tour. Not because of my injury, right? It's more for my family, for my girls, but I don't want to be that guy that has an excuse why he can't do McMap, or why he can't do the O course, or why he can't do, battalion PT. But I'm scared, man. Like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to come back from the injury. And I had started doing a lot of, squats, deadlifts, box jumps, doing stuff that I'd never done in my career before. And then the last thing that I did was play organized sports. I've always shied away from it.
Yeah, I still.
Yeah, it's like, you're asking to get injured, right?
Exactly.
And so I joined a 30 and over soccer league in my community, and took 2 games for me to blow it out. So it's been a struggle, man. I'm still, I don't even have full motion in my leg, my calf, but it taught me a lot, taking shit for granted, little things, taking little stuff for granted. Forced my wife and my daughters to really wait on me hand and foot, and deal with me being pretty demanding on 2 feet. When I'm laying on a couch and I can't even get my own food or beer from the fridge or whatever, I was being pretty demanding at the time. But the doctor said, you could stretch all, I said, I never really stretched before I ran or PT'd or whatever. And he said, your Achilles is a tendon and it has a shelf life just like any other rubber hose or whatever. And once it's done, it's done. So stretching wouldn't have helped. You just put enough wear and tear on it that it was done. So yeah, for all you old guys out there listening, dude, if you don't have to take unnecessary risks, don't. But then again, you're not living, right?
That's true.
For those 2 games, the competitive juices have never flowed as hard as they did, because I was with guys in my community, non-military civilians. Almost all of them had played soccer, growing up. They were really good. So I was compensating. I'm sure, you probably see it a lot in jiu-jitsu where you compensate with ability or strength or even quickness for lack of skill, right? So I'm probably one of the only Mexicans besides you that can't play soccer.
I can't play soccer.
And man, I was sprinting my ass off for an hour straight, nonstop. I weighed, at the time I was 230 almost. I had been lifting a lot. I was pretty heavy, and I was sprinting up and down the field like you couldn't believe. And they've been giving me problems before.
I didn't realize you were up to 230.
Oh man, when I was at Ditra, I was like 235, but that's for other reasons, Eating, drinking, feasting, everything was a big ordeal every time we traveled there or they traveled here.
Right.
And then not doing cardio, just lifting a lot. So.
Yeah. So I've intentionally, I've made the decision I'm not going to compete in jiu-jitsu, because
you probably had to fucking war game that one out.
Yeah, I've gotten the inclination, and there's also the added pressure of so your team competes at tournaments as a team. So how many points you get will determine as a team what you're, and so if I just say, even if it's a small field, I just fight one fight and win or lose, I still walk away with a silver. at a minimum, and that's so many points for the team. So I've had to talk myself even out of that, right? And so my standing response is, whenever anybody asks me why I don't compete, I give them the Ned Stark response when he tells Jaime Lannister in one of the first episodes of Game of Thrones. He says,
I don't fight in tournaments.
No? Getting a little old for it?
I don't fight in tournaments. That's when I fight a man for real. I don't want him to know I can know.
When I edit this, I'll actually insert the audio from the episode in there.
Nice.
But the other thing is, I got to remain deployable. Like I shit you not, Vince. My gear is packed on Oki, ready to go. I had
I'm gonna interrupt you right there, and that's when know. That's when I felt that I lost it, right? Like I wasn't relevant, even though I know I was. Is when you don't have a SIF issue. So when I turned in my SIF issue at first and went to I department, they didn't even give you a rain jacket, not even a damn
Camelback.
Nothing, dude. Day pack, Camelback, nothing. You have what you have.
Yeah.
Here at MCSB, I don't have a SIF issue, dude. My duffel bag is packed every now and then to, go to Quantico.
Right.
That's about it. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that's a valid point. But and the other thing is, I get on the mats with my sons in order to have something that I do with them. So in a lot of ways, it's that time with my boys. But the cool part about it is when we're on the ground, I even got mats at the house. I roll out. I got 10 by 10. Liz gets pissed because I'm moving furniture and sliding shit out of the way, and it smells like a gym in here, kind of thing. But whatever, because that's what I did with my dad growing up. We used to wrestle. I mean, that's just that was just what we did, and he used to especially when he went through the police department, the police academy to join the sheriff's department. He'd come home and he'd practice all that fucking joint manipulation on us and lock us up and all of that. And those were fun times, man. He'd take on the whole fucking neighborhood, me and all my friends. And when you quit, you quit. And that was it. And one by one, he'd get rid of all of us. But, we're rolling with Enrique now. I mean, he trains with grown-ass Marines. He's 16. And his man muscles are starting to come in. He's got, a beard and he's got a shave and all of that. But it was funny because my professor said, Sam, and he kind of waved me off from rolling with Enrique during class to let Enrique experience other because I think he saw what I know is there, but I sometimes refuse to acknowledge it. Is there's a level of tension between me and Kike when we're sparring.
Sure.
And so when Enrique's rolling with the other Marines, that's not there. There might be some other things going on, like trying to establish dominance, filling each other out, kind of thing. But it's not him and Dad going at it, right? So it takes more emotion out of it than would be otherwise. But to watch him roll up with some of the I mean, we got some gladiators up on Hanson, those UDPers.
Yeah, there's not fucking nothing else to do.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, they got no cars, no
you're single, you know what I mean? Like
no girlfriend. They may be taking a college class or two or whatever, but for the majority of those guys, they eat, sleep, and lift and train. And Kike holds his own with them. And for me, as a father to watch my boy and I mean, I love rolling with him, but for him, he's constantly trying to get me. And one day we were up there on Hanson. We got into a scramble. I was trying to work something, and he countered what I was trying to do. And the next thing I know, he had me stretched out and locked me on in a really tight armbar. And normally watching him roll with other guys, he'll set it in, control it, and then go for the extension.
He went straight for it.
He went straight for it. Because he knows rolling with me that if he gives me half a second, I'll twist, smash, and counter out of it. But he was like, "Fuck that! I got this," and I tapped. And he screamed out, "Yes!" like loud.
So back to you not competing, right?
You want to go get another round?
Yeah.
Let's pause this. You said it was too big.
No, the neck was too big.
Oh yeah. So that's called a raw neck.
I can't wear it in uniform. Looks like Gunny Flow in this movie.
Gunny Flow.
Too much sauce right there, bro.
Yeah.
Can't wear this shit.
Maybe not uniform. You can rock it around the crib.
I can't even wear it in the gym, dude. My daughters will give me shit for wearing it.
You can wear it around the house while you cutting grass or some shit.
I'll take it. I'm gonna take it. If I cut the sleeves off, I could definitely wear it in the gym.
Would you believe if I told you I still don't have any tattoos?
You gonna get any?
Maybe when I get out. I play with the idea of a quetzalcoatl, but done in like the Japanese style, like across the whole fucking back.
You got some dudes on where you're at that.
Yeah.
People fly out there to get tatted.
Yeah.
Actually, my buddy who tats out of LA, he flew out to Okinawa to get some shit. I'll see if I can look it up and pass you the name and do your research and see what it's all about. But my boy tats for a living.
When a tattoo artist flies out to a location to get a tattoo,
it's crazy too. He got him and his girl went out there. They took like so many pictures of them in like traditional Japanese bathhouses or whatever,
right.
Samurai swords, wearing the full getup, like black and white shit. Like, oh man, they got some badass fucking pictures, dude.
Yeah, I tell you, man, I love it out there, and just. There's something to be said about the fact that we're all out there. We know why we're there, and
they know why you're there.
They know why we're there. And I mean, we have protests every so often, but I think even the protesters, like there's one guy in particular, this old man. He wears this funny like fisherman hat. And he's got his like dark like Ray Charles glasses on. We always wave at each other whenever they're out there protesting. Like he recognizes me before he sees me, before I'm close by, and he sees me from afar, and he always waves but he's got a sign saying no more bases, go Americans, go home kind of thing. But he's playing his role, and I'm doing mine.
How did everybody take it out there when they scaled back the exercises in Korea and stuff?
It was interesting. It was like finally we get a break, but then we just turned it into a CPX. So we still had an exercise, but it was different, more low key. But one of the cool things about being out there is and Liz and I have been like this from day one. Wherever we go, we put down roots. So she got involved out in the community with the Okinawa International Women's Club. So it's like half Okinawan women, half American spouses and business women and all of that, and they break them down into smaller groups. They call them culture groups, and it's a little bit more manageable. I think there's like 20 in each culture group, and then they'll take turns hosting events at each other's houses. So they'll do an Okinawa culture event, and then they'll do an American culture event, and they take turns planning it. But that's one of our ways to get some local insight of where do you go to buy this, or where, if you want to see that, or what do you recommend for this. And so Liz she's already been adopted like as the Mexican daughter for several of these older Okinawan women.
Exchange cuisine and other culture and music.
And so that's the other thing too. And I've learned this in about Japan. Like if I initiate a conversation with a Japanese person in English, and they try to meet me halfway or whatever, it takes a certain tone. But if I start the conversation in Spanish, it's a completely different environment.
Anything but English, bro.
Yeah.
Anything but no. I found that in all my travels, like. They call me the UBG, right? Universal Brown Guy. And I was going from Europe to Russia to the Baltics. If you're anything but, so if I started off in Spanish or Russian or, Ukrainian, whatever, right? Like they just open up and then you tell them, yeah, it comes out you're American, obviously, but, and I would observe other Americans, Joes, specifically out there. Just
Joes.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh my God, man, no wonder why, we're so uncouth. But that's back to the whole culture thing. I mean, it's, when you have your team leads or your officers or, whoever, just having even the culture aspect, let's say none of the language, it goes a long way.
So talk to me about that, because you spend a lot of time in a language dominant role through several tours, right? What's the definition of cross-cultural competency, and how does that make you a better linguist than just knowing the vocabulary and the grammar?
Well, from an interpreter standpoint, right? You kind of have to game both sides, right, to meet your agenda. So I was doing non-proliferation treaties or agreements, right, plutonium production reactor agreement type stuff. A lot of it is, I'll show you 2 of my cards, you show me 2 of yours. I already know what the other 3 are, but it's a formal process that we go through. And there's a lot of other stuff going on in the background, but you can make something as rehearsed and scripted as an inspection go really, really poorly without having, that language or that culture. So when you're prepping your team lead, going into a country, you want to give them all the insights, especially if you know the people you're going to be dealing with. To answer your question, the cross-cultural competencies, they're intricate, right? And it's hard for you as a linguist to really know them unless you've been to that country. You can do a lot by studying and, honing your skills with a native speaker, right? Whether it be a teacher or a mentor or whoever. But being there, observing them, and just being humble and open to, you let them lead, right? It's like a dance. You let them lead and you watch your feet. And sooner or later, you're able to lead or at least show somebody how to do that dance. And there's so many different cultures, even within Europe or Russia, right? There's Muslim countries, Christian, Orthodox, simple things, interpreting when you hear the Red Cross, but really they said Red Crescent, but your mind's going 1,000 miles a minute, and you say Red Cross in a Muslim country, that's a big faux pas, I think if you grow up in diverse setting anywhere in America, you're more sensitive to cultural sensitivities. I personally grew up in one of those kind of communities or LA, everything, especially
what part of
where I was
Los
at.
Angeles?
Originally from La Puente, and that was a predominantly Hispanic community, Mexican community, not even Hispanic, right? Just Mexicans, right?
Right.
And then I moved farther south to southern LA County, pretty close to Orange County by the time I got to high school. And Asian, Indian, Mexican, Black, I mean, you name it. But a lot of my friends, when at school, they were one of the bros, but when I'd go to their house to meet their parents, I was bowing, or we were getting rice out of a dispenser, which I never seen in my life. Or, I was eating some kind of tropical, plantain, fried plantain or whatever. Like, it was cool, man. It really, when I joined the Marine Corps, it was nothing new. A lot of Marines, when they go into boot camp, they've never been exposed to other cultures or
Some other races.
I had with dudes in Camp Pendleton, we were doing a beach run. One dude stopped in his tracks, like stopped running, and they're yelling, "Get the fuck back in formation," or whatever. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Private pile, pretty much. It's like, I've never seen a beach before. That shit fucking blew me away, dude. I'm from Cali. I grew up on the beach for the most part. Even if I had to drive to the beach, I was always at the beach.
I grew up on an island. For me to hear motherfuckers say that would blow my mind.
Yeah, so imagine like just even the culture aspect, a landlocked country, no internet, no technology,
right?
Different industries, agriculture, or other staples.
Another aspect, yeah.
Yeah, so you got to be sensitive to everything. For the most part, a lot of the professionals in the Marine Corps that deal with language and culture, they get it. And there's been a lot of senior leaders that have pushed for it, language, regional expertise, and culture. But it's not sexy, man. It's not, people don't want to throw money at it. It's always an afterthought. It comes up in every after action from any MU, MAGTF, any deployment. We could have used more cool cultural advisors, or we could have used more intel linguists, or we could have used more guys for interrogations, whatever. But we're not at a point where there's enough buy-in, and we're getting to a point where human language technology is, at a level where, at least for documents, right? A 2-2 linguist, Google Translate, right, to name one of them, could perform at a 2-2 level for the most part, even better. Yeah. Right, because it's on demand.
Yeah. I use Google Translate nonstop in Okinawa. My jiu-jitsu professor speaks Japanese, Portuguese, some English, and he speaks to me in Portuguese. I speak to him in Spanish. But when there's something I need to say to his wife, who speaks she speaks English, Portuguese, Spanish, and Japanese, but at different degrees. But Japanese is her primary language. If I'm sending her a message on Facebook or trying to communicate something very specific or detailed, I'll type it out or speak it into it in Google Translate and then translate it.
How many times has she come back and said, like, what the fuck are you saying?
No.
Yeah, hardly ever, probably.
Never.
Yeah, and that's a big push, man. I mean, we want that, the goals, that 3-3 level. DLI's not ready. They can't show the statistics, right? The graduation rates, the scores that say we can produce that level of linguists in this time. In some of the languages they can, or they're close to it. The Romance languages, and that makes sense. But
yeah, I think,
and there's a number of different factors that, from faculty to curriculum to turnover rate to the complexity of the language. But pretty soon, right? Like, and automation, that goes for everything, not just language. A lot of people are going to be finding themselves out of a job, whether it be Intel related, whether it be service related, right? Kiosk and customer service, and So I know you're a very tech savvy dude. You're up on all, or at least most of the latest and greatest technology in your professional career and in just life, right? Like I'm scared to get an iPhone because I tried it for a week and I just couldn't do it, man. And I bought a MacBook for my home computer and really had my daughter in mind. I'm like, well, we need a laptop. Our laptop broke or whatever. I'm going to use it for work and doing emails or whatever, but my daughter is going to be in middle school and high school, and I know most schools use Apple products, so, and she has an iPhone. And anyway, I tried getting an iPhone. I can't go from using Windows at work, to Apple at home.
So I do both intentionally, just because of the fact that when I'm on my Mac, it's not work. It's something else. But I want to be exposed to some of the tools, right? So for audio production, for instance, for this, I'm using Adobe, and Adobe is kind of operating system agnostic. It'll flip back and forth. But there's other programs that are Mac only that I like, and there's some programs that are Windows only that I use as well. But I'm starting to find that there's some services that are HTML based that are even better. Like I was using Evernote for a long time to track projects and papers that I was writing and stuff like that. You could be looking at a website, and I could clip that page or whatever it was that I was reading to Evernote, and it would upload automatically to the cloud, and it was immediately accessible on my phone, my iPad, my MacBook, or I could log in on any computer and just access it from the Evernote website. And then from a collaboration standpoint, because we were using Evernote as a vehicle for collaborating on a game project that I was building to teach.
That's when you were at the schoolhouse, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
whatever came with that.
It died, man. So it's one of those things where...
How many other people in our community developed a game that was interactive, right, and taught... It was language oriented and scenario based oriented, like on the Intel side, right?
So the idea behind it was insurgent mindset training. Teach your Marines how to think like their adversaries.
Right.
So you got a kid from Kentucky, Arkansas, Wyoming, Virginia. How do you get him to think like a Mexican drug dealer? Mm-hmm. Well, give him a video game and you say, hey,
Narcos wasn't out yet.
Right?
Right. So.
Narcos was not out yet. The movie Sicario wasn't out yet. And so this was like 2010 time frame. So almost 10 years ago. But the problem was I didn't have an AI programmer, and the Marines figured out a flaw in the rudimentary AI programming that the airmen had coded, and they determined that if they stockpiled their troops in one territory and then had a buffer, that the computer wouldn't recognize the actual strength, the end strength of the human player, and then they would attack one of the border towns, and then the human player could just then wipe them out, kind of like Risk, right? Yeah. When you mass all your troops in one territory, Yamchatka or something like that. So I once we realized that there was a flaw in the AI, I stopped the game, had the Marines all log in on the same computer. But the only one, because they could still, I didn't want them to be able to screen peek. The only one that could sit at the computer was the one whose turn it was, and everybody else had to wait their turn in the back of the room. But what we realized was now the game was being played in the back of the room. as they were making and breaking alliances. Hey, look, I'll let you hold Michoacan if you let me take Nuevo Leon, and we'll push in together on that guy, and then at that point in time, once he's eliminated, then we go our separate ways, or whatever the case may be. That's when they started to replicate and think like replicate the TTPs and think like their adversary. And the Air Force, who was the executive agent out there, a good fellow, they required me to retain a question and answer session. And it's like, well, why? He said, well, because it's the curriculum review component. That's why they're playing it, so they can review the material from, the course. And I had to explain to him, like, look, what you're doing is you're breaking the flow, right? The guy that's running the Gulf cartel or the Zetas cartel isn't having to stop and answer questions from, multiple choice perspective. He's playing the game. He's living in the geography and the terrain, and that's what the Marines are doing. So if we kind of refine what's the purpose of this game? The purpose of this game is to understand and identify how these guys think and operate.
It was almost like a cultural lesson, right?
Exactly. Or
and TTPs, like
right.
This is how they operate,
right? Because they had to recruit guys, they had to equip them, they had to train them. And then there was hero classes that you could pick. You could have your combat guy, which was a sicario. You had your intelligence guy, which was an halcón, and you had your finance guy that made it easier for you to launder money and sell drugs at better rates than the other guys would have. But the other thing was geography was experienced. It wasn't memorized. Right, so if I ask them where's Sinaloa, they know exactly where Sinaloa is because they fought 14 turns against their barracks mate over that territory because they had to get that key, control point in order to lock on their logistics chain. And so when they started to understand, like the Marines ate it up until I left. And then, listening to. So
you don't own the rights to that game?
No, because I did it on government time with government resources for a government. So but the game's still there. It's just, matter of fact, I got a copy of it on a Google Drive. But the game never got to the point to where I was satisfied with it. Like the real game hasn't even been developed yet.
Yeah.
And it's sitting somewhere up here in my head. And General Seeley sent me to the ITSEC, which was the Inter-Service Industry Training, Simulation, and Education Conference. And I got to see there's a fucking industry behind this stuff. And, Bakewell asked me, like, what are you going to do, man? You sticking around? You getting out?
That's the bootmaster guns of the Marine Corps, by the way. Yeah. Shout out to Eric Bakewell, the last number, literally, in the whole list.
That's a good dude, man. I like him.
I saw him yesterday at the OAG.
Yeah, I didn't get to interact with him until recently. Was he out at Radbin with us?
He was at Radbin, but he was, like, out at Intel, from Radbin to Intel Battalion. And, I didn't realize he was out there either until we started sharing stories about, battalion staff sleeping with lance corporals. And he was like, oh, I remember that guy because he came over to Intel Battalion and slept with the sergeant major's wife, who was a sergeant. I was like, that guy's a first-class douchebag. So I won't mention any names. If you're back from that time, you probably know who we're talking about, but... You got shout out to Eric Bakewell.
Yeah. But he asked me like, what are you doing? And I said, well, I don't know, man. I'm still having fun. I just re-upped for 4 more years. Still waiting for it to be approved at Headquarters Marine Corps. They could tell me, no, hey, pack your shit, it's time to go. I doubt it, but whatever. For me, at some point in time, I want to own my own business, doing something. I've got some ideas. Nothing that's ironclad just yet. Liz and I had talked for years about opening up a private school where we take in, some boys that may be, orphans or, in the system, and then the other half of the boys would be from well-to-do families that could afford the tuition. Break them up into squads, platoons, whatever. Get them up in the morning, take them for a run, teach them how to shoot, how to sharpen a knife, how to do calculus, how to code, how to set up a radio, how to sail, how to fight, those kind of things, right? A little bit based off of the Scouts, a little bit based off of the Marines, not necessarily either.
Your experience, or probably maybe my experience, or whatever, like blending in, playing both sides of the of the card, being able to swim in a room full of sharks, or fucking I really feel like I can be in most rooms and be able to hold my own in any level. Not so much as in the educational, pedagogic, level. So I'm lacking really hard in education, formal education, non-military education. Right, I've been a DLI 3 times, all the academies, a bunch of schools.
3 fucking times?
Yeah, man.
Damn.
Total of 4 years at DLI. Was even learning concepts in Russian that I really didn't understand in English, but I could interpret meetings between scientists, and I did interpret 15 times specifically on one project and I was literally, by the end of the day, I was kind of going over my notes, and I was like, I don't even know what this shit means in English. But I knew the vocabulary. I went to the training. I went to specialized training for it. I wanted to get back to 2 things. I'll start with the most recent one. So the human factor in AI, right? Like on a smaller scale, you saw that the human factor is there, right? The humans can figure it out, right? Not the machines, but the humans will. Or they can adapt. And I'm sure the machine learning can adapt better than we can, but you still need a QCer, right? And it kind of goes to the same, back to what I was saying about linguist. 2-2 linguists are going to be irrelevant here in the near future. Your 3-3 with a good cultural knowledge base and background,
right?
Those are the guys that you're going to need to QC the AI.
But the only way you're going to get that level of cultural expertise is by doing immersions, and that shit costs, man.
Yeah.
I mean, my time in Panama, my time in Bolivia, my time in Haiti, my time in the Dominican Republic, even in the small amount of time that I was in Spain, all of that made me so much better than
any formal training you could have had. That's a double-edged sword, though, too, right? And you're a gringo, right, from Galveston. So we want the guys with the funny last names, right? But we don't want to grant them access to certain things because of foreign contacts, right? So what do you want? Because if you want both, you're going to have to throw a shit ton of money at it. And that's almost the unattainable, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the interpreters that I worked with at DITRA lived in Russia or former Soviet Union, 16, 17, sometimes even after high school, then came here, were educated here, degrees here, military service here. Mostly the guys that were they came around the middle of high school, 14, 15, 16, finished off their high school education in college here. And then those are the guys that were they're unicorns, right? Russia, at the time, a lot of people were defecting. So there was I run into circles where I know more of them, and they're all, in the business, and it'd be hard to do the vice versa, right? To get an American dude to go over there right around that time and let them. A lot of these guys came here with nothing, and made something of themselves, whether it be the military, whether it be other professions. But those skills, you can't grow them. and you really have to invest in them. And I mean, that leads into something I definitely wanted to talk about is retaining Marines. All right, you and I were talking on the phone the other day when you went into the visit, and you're kind of alluding to, man, some cool shit that these guys are doing. And I was like, yeah, man, they do it for real, right? Like full time, Monday through Friday or whatever. They do their profession for real. And you pick any discipline in the Marine Corps, but any intel discipline, say language, right? You could be a linguist one tour. You can be an SSO your next. And then you can be a recruiter in the following one. And you're expected to, by the time you're a gunny, for instance, right? In the language world, in the DoD world, in the IC world, like, oh, our linguists that have been in that long or 3.3, 4.4, whatever, we keep on half-assing our critical professions. That's the nature of the beast, right? You're a Marine first and foremost. Guys like you, me, and a lot of other guys that I was in the room with yesterday would gladly do what we signed up to do. And we understand that we have to work extra hard to maintain your level of proficiency in whatever your discipline is. But a lot of these young guys that I'm talking to now, at my current command, we're not giving them the incentive to stay, right? And yeah, they want to be Marines, but they also found something that they're good at. They want to keep doing it, and they understand that if they even do one 4-year tour outside of that profession, that specialty, they're going to fucking lose it, and they're going to be behind the curve. And they know that our adversaries are doing it full time, right?
Right.
I don't know that, you pick any country that is one of our near peer competitors. They're not giving them a 4-year pause to go be recruiters out in the streets of fucking Moscow, right? That's not a fucking thing, man. Right? And when you talk about specialized disciplines, I mean, if it has anything to do with technology, fuck, man. You take 4 weeks off and you're behind.
Right.
When I was doing DITRA, 5 years out of the game, doing language, right? But that's not what we do. That's a key, that's a plus, icing on a cake, and an extra thing that linguists have to maintain, right? You can learn the gear, you can learn reconnaissance. Let's say you're an RRP Marine who happens to be a linguist, right? You got to know radios, you got to know, the concepts, you got to be able to perform their TNR events. And oh, by the way, when you have time, you need to be a good linguist as well, right? You're right. Asking a lot out of somebody and that is, or Muse, or, even SST guys, same thing, So yeah, I mean,
Shout out to the SST guys.
Shout out to the Muse guys, man. I don't even know if they're not even called Muse anymore, man. They don't even
Lavus.
Yeah, they're just guys. So yeah, I mean, I know that we're never going to sell the Marine Corps on, hey, we need to have full-time linguists, right, throughout their whole careers. But that's what makes the nation doesn't really need a Marine Corps. I mean, over the last 10 years, DOD has like sneezed and gotten rid of an Army Corps, right? They could fucking blink an eye, and all, how many we have in our force can disappear. That's nothing, nothing compared to an Army Corps, you know. But it's those intangibles. It's the whole Marine concept. It's that being able to bloom anywhere you're planted, under the face of stress or adversity or, you know, unfamiliarity. Like, that's what we want to see in Marines, right? But at some point, and it's the pendulum swinging more to the professionalized force, the technical experts. If we want to retain these guys that have these skills that we've invested in, we got to fucking, I don't know if it's money, homesteading, the whole, you know, you get to wear the Eagle Globe and Anchor. I don't think that's cutting it anymore, for my observation, you know. And I really don't know how I feel about it. I understand it from my side.
Right.
Right, where, yeah, we've both sacrificed, you know, a lot. Money, power, respect, family, you know, you can name it all, to just be a Marine, right?
Yeah, I was gonna leave for a while there. I was gonna cross deck to the Army. They were recruiting me for one of their programs. Yeah, and General Stewart made me a different offer, and I took him up on it just because of the fact that, you know, he cut right to the bone. He says, "Do you really want to go to the Army?" And I was like, "No, I don't. But they have opportunities that we don't have. Yeah. They've got the structure, they've got the manpower, they've got the resources, and I could really become master of this one thing or the other, as opposed to what I'm contending with on this side of things." And he made an honest effort, and I recognized that, and I stuck around. You know, and there was even a time when I was in Haiti. I was coming up close towards the end of my contract, and Master Gunny Stevens was the ops chief at the time at Battalion. I came back from patrol with 3-8 India Company, and we cut loose and came back to the regimental headquarters there, where then Colonel Gaganis was, and I pull up, and the OIC for us was Teague Plain.
Yeah.
He says, "Hey, you got to give Master Gun Stevens a call. He wants to talk to you." You know, as a sergeant, Master Guns doesn't reach out to you that often, directly.
Right.
So, you know, I knew it was something. So I get upstairs, get some chow, get upstairs, and give him a holler. He says, "Hey, stud, I need to know what your plans are." Like
for the weekend.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm on deployment.
Yeah, like I'm gonna groom my mustache. I'm gonna fucking pull out my sombrero and make sure it still fits a gallon of.
Right. So he says, "No, what are your plans for reenlistment?" I'm like, I still got a good ways. I want to say, like, at that time I had like 13, 14 months left. And he said, "The reason why I ask is because the company commanders are stacking their deck. We're prepping up for OIF 2, TAC 2, or I think this was what it was. And I need to know if you're going to re-enlist, because if so, then I'm going to bring you back to Lejeune so you can have time to do the workup and roll out with the rest of the battalion." I was like, "Why wouldn't you just leave me here? You know, you could send whatever team you're going to send to replace me. You send them to Iraq, and I can stay here." He says, "You don't understand. Like, the company commanders are doing their horse trading and draft picks and all of that, and you're a known quantity. They want you. What are you going to do?" And I was like, "I can't make that call right now on the spot. I've got to call and talk to my wife." And he says, "Okay, so, you know, I'll give you a few days and just let me know what you decide." I'm good to go. So I called Liz and I told her, I said, "Look, I could get out, maybe go into the Air Force or whatever, and we could just do the rest, and it was my second deployment, and I'd only been there a battalion at that time for maybe a little over a year, right? So I knew that, and then here's coming on the horizon is my third deployment. It's like, this shit's not going to stop. Are you okay with this? You know, because at that point we'd spent 3 years at Monterey,
Right.
and so, and she said, well, yeah, okay, I see what Master Guns are saying. She said, but if you do get out and you do join the Air Force, you'd have to wear their uniform. I said, well, yeah. I mean, that's part of it. And she said, but you're a Marine. I said, you're right, baby. I am a Marine. I'll always be a Marine. But she says, but that's not who you are. You know, she says, I'm good. I've signed up for this. And, you know, for me, I could just never.
And that's a 1 in 1,000, you know, situation, you know, odds that I don't know, it has nothing to do with you being older or, you know, you guys being, you know, high school sweethearts or whatever. You don't get that buy-in from many spouses or family, anybody, period, you know.
That woman loves the Marine Corps.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, she's great for it, too. I mean, she's probably influenced just as many wives as you have, you know, or husbands or, you know, whatever spouses as you have Marines.
She tells the story almost all the time about how Joe Black explained to her why we were going to San Angelo instead of San Antonio. Like he brought her in and he told her from the monitor, from headquarters Marine Corps,
Nice.
We need the Castro family in San Angelo because of this, that, and the other. And at first she was pissed, but when the fact that he took the time to explain it to her.
Yeah. So, you know, back to retention and the Marines nowadays, again, so I want to make sure that I point out the fact that we all joined pre 9/11, right? When I joined the Marine Corps, going to war wasn't really a thought in my head, right? Like we were kind of in a time of peace, right?
Yeah, but
you know, let's do it, go to war on that. But really not until 9/11 did I ever think that, right? So all the Marines that joined after 9/11, literally,
they knew what they were getting
They knew
into.
what they're getting into. That there is a 90% chance I'm going to get deployed at some point. So I have to commend every Marine that has joined after September 11, 2001, right? But a lot of Marines feel, or a lot of people feel, that they can do just as much good or harm, you know, in a good way to the adversary from behind a computer or, you know, stateside than they could downrange, right? There's less opportunities downrange, less boots on the ground, and we're not really fighting wars that way nowadays. So so back to what you were saying, right? You can only touch so many Marines, right? And yeah, you can talk to every Marine and you can take a special interest in everybody, but not every Marine is in the top 10%. And we like to think that they are, and sometimes we like to rate them on their reenlistment packages that they are.
Water walkers.
You know, like, holy shit, you got a battalion full of, you know, tier 1 Marines? Fuck, man. You guys are awesome, but that's not the case. So having good mentors, taking special interest in Marines that, you know, we need to retain this guy. I think that we're doing it, and we have to continue to do it. But until the Marine Corps or the DoD, you know, wants to start throwing money at people, homesteading them, we're not going to retain everybody that we need to, or everybody that we invested money into. But, you know, maybe that's not a bad thing. Again, when we're put in that situation where I'm doing this for the love of being a Marine and for what the Marine Corps stands for and the core values, and you can't buy that, you know. So Yeah, I often ask myself 2 questions. One, would I have joined after 9/11 knowing that war was imminent? Or even deployments, some deployments, yeah, you're supporting the war effort, but are you really in combat? Well, not all of them. And then 2, if I had like those skills that some of these young Marines, those specialized niche skills in my 20s, and somebody offered to double or triple my salary, that next day or that next month when I got out, what would I do? Would I make that conscious decision to stay in and say, no, I'm willing to take my risk and go outside of my comfort zone, outside of my specialty, potentially, to do something completely different. I don't know what decision I'd make. So I commend a lot of these young Marines, and they never cease to amaze me with how talented and bright they are. Especially I'm exposed to it a lot more, where I'm at now, and they're great. They're great people, great Americans. The only comfort I get in not retaining a good Marine that goes into the private sector, government sector, is that they're still supporting the war effort, right? So yeah, we want them in on our team, right? We want him wearing our jersey, but if he's still in the same league, if he's at the Olympics on a dream team, then hey, as long as America gets the gold, that's what it's all about. So. And maybe it's a better fit for him and his family. A lot of younger Marines have young families. I don't remember that many young Marines having families when we were coming up. But if I sat down and did the math or the statistics, I could be wrong.
There was quite a few of us.
Yeah.
Remember, like Tillman.
Well, I knew all of them because that's the only place we could go and underage drink.
Right. So let's tell the story of the day. Enrique had just been born. He might have been like maybe 6 months old, or he was still a baby. So she had never been to Disneyland or Disney World. She wanted to go. So we took a trip down there. It might have been during the summertime. I don't remember when she was out of school. But so we went down south, went to Disneyland, and we left Pedro, of all people,
with the kids,
with the keys to the house.
Oh shit! Well, I was probably there then.
Yeah, you were there. So we ended up coming back earlier than we had anticipated, and there's this huge block party going on in our house. And when we walked in the house, Pedro's there looking like he just got caught with his hands in the cookie jar, but. In true Pedro fashion, he just immediately goes into surprise. I didn't know all these guys. I knew most of them, like maybe 70, 75, 80% of them. But there was people that I didn't know, and Pedro just immediately hey, we had a surprise party for you coming back.
Oh man.
But we always had. Guys like Joe Weldon spending the night, Pedro spending the night, Bryce Reed spending the night,
Hernandez was there until he got locked up. Mm-hmm. One of the other points I wanted to circle back to was when we left off at jiu-jitsu and you saying, how you're not competing. I saw a meme today from one of my jiu-jitsu buddies. When I say I don't do jiu-jitsu, I'm too cool for that. But it said, you say your jiu-jitsu doesn't work in the streets. They're like, it's because your jiu-jitsu doesn't work in the gym. Right? So, and I immediately, train the way we fight. And I thought about, SIGINT and Field X's and a lot of them training evolutions that for the most part failed, right? On the smallest level or simplest levels. And, I thought about that environment, whether it be radios or whether it be computers or whatever, and training the way we fight. Are we training the way we fight? our adversaries training the way they fight, right? In an uncontested environment, in a live environment. And I think we all know the answer to those questions. So it's something that the red tape is always going to be there, and we got to try to figure out how to mitigate that roadblock. But I don't know, man. You know, I'm starting to think about a lot of this stuff from a different aspect, more of on my way out. How are you guys going to do it, right? And it's kind of the wrong way to think about it, really. I'm still in. I'm going to, give it my all while I'm in, but I don't see longevity in my career. Enough time that's going to be able to tackle these questions, come up with a solution. So I know you're going to be in for a while, I would imagine.
I don't know.
Right?
I'm still having fun, like I said. And I just re-upped for 4. Somebody asked me, like, and I take it with a grain of salt, but I understand better now than I did maybe 2 years ago who Sammy Castro is and what role he plays in the overarching 2600 community and by extension the force, which I would say is minuscule, but I've had others tell me otherwise. What's your ideal billet? Like, when you get master guns, what master guns do you want to be? Where do you see yourself being a master guns at? And the selfish side of me, I want to be the master guns at the MiG, so I don't have to leave Okinawa. Mm-hmm. They love it out there. But I don't know if I want a battalion. I've been out of it too long. I feel like I would be doing the Marines a disservice. But maybe that's what's needed, because the game is changing. And I have experiences outside the battalion that I could bring to bear. What I want, your job, or Ransom's job, I know for sure that I don't want one of the company senior enlisted advisor slots, and I'm glad that they made them master sergeants instead of master guns. I think that was a misuse of that level of our force structure. But I've had a couple of people poke me in the chest and say that I needed to be out at one of the slots, maybe a DCI, where they need a thinker and a doer at the same time, a writer that could, advocate and champion. Being objective, I think that'd probably be a better fit, but I don't know. I mean, like I told Nick, I said I would love to be an Okie for 6 years. I know that's not plausible, but I'm still in this for the team. And my team isn't a 6-man SST anymore. It's the Marine team, and the Ockfield second. And then we'll let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
Can my son, my oldest son, please graduate from Kupasaki and then use me and abuse me?
Yeah, that crossroad, I mean, especially at the E8, E9 rank is,
yeah.
Like Scoggins, like John, I think he still has, or had, or still has a lot of fight left in him.
He's just gonna carry it off in a different uniform.
He is. So he did his part. He carried his pack and others, and he made an impact on a long-lasting impact on the community. And the things I enjoyed more about our talks while I was at our department, more than the talks about the community and the modernization, were talks about family, being a family man and making decisions for the family. And I think it's one of the most unselfish things for a man to do is to get out of the Marine Corps, right? Like when you're at the top of your game and, E8, E9, whatever, I mean, you've earned and you have the respect of just about everybody you come in contact with, kind of what we're talking about in the beginning. People listen when you speak, whether you're right or wrong, and you can influence change. You can influence the younger generation. You have the ear of your superiors that actually make policy and decisions, like real decisions. And, to exit from that because you want to be a better father or it's best for your family, that's the most unselfish thing you can do. So my hat's off to him. I still don't know if he's even announced what he's doing, or I think he retires at the end of September, if I remember looking correctly on MOL.
Who's that?
Scoggins, John. Yeah. I don't know if he was waiting until then to say what he's going to do or whatever, but that guy was definitely postured to do, one of the key billets or, whatever you call it, or go back to Radio Battalion, right? So, yeah, I think I've made the decision, to be honest, though. You have boys, man, and I know they come with their own set of intricacies and issues, and
in some ways they're a lot easier, though.
I don't know, man. I really feel like I've been away way too much. We all have, but I think my girls would appreciate it more down the road. And even if it's 20 years down the road, if they say, "Hey, Dad, I'm glad that you were there for my high school." My kids, I had kids younger, or later than you did, right? Yep. So they could say, "I'm glad you were there, for my middle school and high school, and went to my games, and went to my, picked up my boyfriend, or not let me have boyfriends, or whatever they thank me for, just for being there, then it's worth it for me. It's worth it." So
my boys are spoiled, just in the fact that, like the 5 years I was at Radio Battalion, I did 4 deployments, but since then I haven't deployed at all except with them, right? So when I went to DR, they were with me for those years. When I wasn't, as I've been in Oki, they've been with me, but I've had no deployment since then. Yeah. So,
it's easier when they're younger. Oh, it's never easy, but
it's easier when they're younger, and
especially when you have like a wife like Liz that can hold it down while you're gone. And yeah, it's easy. It's probably easier when you're gone because you're not coming in random hours of the night or on the weekends fucking their shit up.
Well, yeah. There's that too.
Like, they got the schedule. Yep. Your wife's figured it out. Don't come back, at 8 o'clock every night or on Saturdays or Sundays and you want to do something. Like, let us do our thing. So, yeah, you're one of the fortunate ones that have a strong spouse to hold it down, and good kids, right? Yeah. So,
good kids. They keep me on my toes. That's for sure. Vicente gotten into this. I'm borrowing his iPad for the purposes of this trip. I was using it for several things, to include doing some interviews, and because I have my canned questions are written on a text document, and then I can mark it up with a pencil and all of that,
touchscreen
to
or whatever.
Take notes and stuff. But his messages feed is attached to it. And so I saw
like his text messages.
Yeah.
Dang, dude.
So
I'd get excommunicated if my daughter knew that I was like, my wife looks at her messages. I don't look at her messages.
Right. So he's got a buddy of his, this cool chubby black kid by the name of Gabe. This is next door neighbor. They're Ace Boon Coon. They you know, they're thick as thieves, best friends. And Vicente messaged him and says, I got some bad news. And Gabe's like what's up? He says, I've been diagnosed with second stage sarcoma. And he's like, what's that? He goes, sucking my nuts. So I mean, if he was a girl making, you know, vulgar jokes like that wouldn't be tolerated.
Yeah.
But with boys, I'm like, you got him, son. You got him. So I asked my cousin. I said, because we were home on leave for about 32 days, and he spent some time with Vicente, the youngest one, and I said, what'd you think? He said, man, he got me. I said, how'd he get you? He told me, he said, I can't believe after 12 years to this day they're still together. And I started laughing because I already knew where he was going. He's like, yeah, even with these nuts. You know, and I mean, he's just sharp like that. But you know, Enrique's a completely different animal.
Yeah.
You know, and I appreciate that. You know, the fact that they both got their unique characteristics, but I mean, you have that with your girls too.
Yeah. Not only the age difference, but complete different personalities. And
How many years apart are they?
so Melania's 12 today. Today's her birthday.
So like if her and Vicente were standing next to each other,
Yeah,
she'd tower over him.
So I went to her first volleyball game yesterday, and there was about 4 girls taller than her on her team, which, you know, I'm amazed at how tall she is. But yeah, their kids these days they're crazy. So 12 and 6. But they're roughly about 5.5 years apart. They're getting to that point now where they used to play together and do everything together, and now, even when the older ones' friends were over, but now the older ones, you know, preteen and emotional and puberty and all that. So
Yeah.
It's starting to change, and I feel bad because I think it's going to come to a point where the younger one's going to feel like an only child, and I never had to deal with that. I had a 2-year. My brother was 2 years older. In high school, I had a little bit of that, but it didn't last long. You know, we were all hanging out before it was all said and done. But yeah.
So let me ask you, if not for the Marines, where would Vince Quinteros be?
Ooh. I planned on getting out after my first enlistment to go into the subprime lending market with my brother, who at the time he was 25, killing it, bro, balling in every aspect of the word. So that was in 2004, right? A couple years later, you know, we all know what happened. So I don't know what I would have been doing, to be honest with you. Probably would have gotten in trouble. You know, I didn't even manage to stay out of trouble in my first tour. But it ended up working out, and, you know, something I don't want to relive ever again.
So what did you think when I first told you that I was doing a podcast?
I mean, to be honest, I was like, oh, well, he's created a video game before, he's done this, he's done that. I'm like, we'll see. We'll see how it goes, right? Like, I was interested. And then I listened to a couple episodes, and then you had mentioned about, hey, I want to get you on there. And then I was taken back, I was like, wow, this is almost like sending an email, it's out there forever.
Right.
What if I misspeak? What if I say something incorrect? What if I, show myself in a different light?
So from that aspect, I always let the guests review it in order to make sure that they're okay with everything that goes out. Would it surprise you to know that we're at almost like 5,500 downloads? Out of like 15 episodes?
No. So back to the podcast, right? The concept, the idea. I think it's great, man. My roommate is a Chief Warrant Officer 2 in the Army, SIGINT guy, right? His whole career. And I was like, hey, man, I'm going to head out, meet up with my buddy. He's going to interview me for his podcast. And he's like, what do you mean podcast? Told him, it's for the community. It's like, oh, so the Marine Corps is paying him to do it? I'm like, no, he's doing it on his own. These are the kind of people we've had on there. So we just had our first Chief Warrant Officer on there. And he was like, his eyes were lighting up, right? And I would imagine we talk a lot about professionalizing the OC field.
He's a SIGINTer too?
He's a SIGINTer too, yeah.
Okay.
So we talk a lot about professionalizing the OC field in the Marine Corps. And, I thought about it, a lot last week. And, what if infantry OC field had a podcast? What if, mortarmen, artillerymen, do lawyers have podcasts? Do teachers have podcasts like this where, they can go and share experiences and bring in different points of view, senior, junior, different levels of whatever profession you're in? I think it's great, man. I think there's absolutely zero harm that can come out of it. Everything that comes out of every episode, every minute, whether it be with the SIGINTer or non-SIGINTer, is only going to help the community. I would say that the bigger the following you get, the better, right? I would imagine there would be a point where people that hear about it outside of the community would just tune in and listen and critique it or not. Maybe say, hey, I want to do something like that for my community, whether it be really niche community or a broader specialized community. I think it's great, man. I think it took a lot of balls to do it. And I was actually thinking about, when I was on my way up here, like, so at what point, 2 questions, at what point are you going to be on the other end of the mic, right? And I hope it's not at the end of your career and at the end of your podcasting lifetime, because you're going to, a lot of your answers are going to be a combination of other people's answers, right? Yeah. Or, you can kind of game the system and say, well, prepare for an answer, whether it be about family life or professional life, or maybe you've heard it all already, right? And then 2, like, who's going to interview you, right? So, we might have to board that too, like, all right, who's going to interview Sammy Castro? There's actually one other thing before you answer those. Well, actually, yeah, what do you think about those 2 questions?
So I would say that there's a lot of me in pretty much every episode, because that's the flow that I'm comfortable with. In order to elicit, I use the quid pro quo. So I'll give information, mm-hmm. or I've gotten pretty adept at taking them down a path and then setting them up for a sweep, right, with a question. I didn't have to do it for this one, but I think a lot of that is because of familiarity. I mean, you and I have been tight for years now.
Right.
And
we've talked about doing this, but either I backed out or you've passed out. So
yeah, and I did pass out the other night.
Yeah.
Jet lag whipping my ass, but the question about me being on the other end, me being interviewed, that's a good one. But like I said, I think a lot of me is already out there in a lot of the conversations. But for somebody to drill in and start to ask questions like,
someone to give you a leg sweep,
yeah,
you know, we could get a different response.
So who could interview? Who would interview me for that? I think my number one sparring partner,
your wife,
it would be Liz.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
For Liz to interview me would put me at my most vulnerable position.
It take you through the roller coaster of all the emotions, right?
Yeah.
That's. I think that she will be the one to do it. You know when, right? Probably when you tell her, "I'm done."
Yeah, or I'm ready.
Or I'm ready.
Yeah.
Ready to be done.
It'd be like a season finale or something like that. That's a good question. So let's shift gears a little bit, make it a little bit lighter. I don't normally ask this question because not everybody has the same horrible listening taste as I do, but who's your top 5 rappers?
Fuck, man.
All time, and then from like 2000. Well, let's do all time first.
I don't even listen to rap anymore. I mean, I listen to what's on the radio and it disgusts me, to be honest with you. You know, I'm from LA, from Cali. So, Pac was definitely very influential and of my time. And, when I listen to his songs, that takes me back to a point in time and space.
Right.
And I can remember what I was doing or who I was hanging out with. And, I could almost remember what I was wearing the first time, what I was no shit doing the first time I heard that song. Biggie, definitely one of the other ones, but that's pretty cliche to say Pac and Biggie, right? Too Short. I used to listen to Too Short. That was all of his shit, right? And I could still recite just about every verse of almost every one of his songs.
At advanced course, I was calling cadence, and I was doing some Too Short. I remember how it all began. I used to sing dirty rap songs.
My East Side, yeah. So, as far as like talented, well, he wouldn't be not that he wouldn't be on my list, but he's one of the more influential ones in my life. There was a time when I was a big Bonehead, Bone Thugs and Harmony. That was the hit, right? And it's funny that, now my wife is from Cleveland and...
He's 1999.
Oh, man. I just zone out to that. Who else? I mean, all time, I got to give it up to Eminem. And I've always... so I have a lot of friends from Detroit that I met through the Marine Corps, and then by proxy, like his friends and their friends. So I mean, I go to Detroit a lot and hang out with the scum of the earth, pretty much, right? Like these guys are they're all great people. I love going out there and hanging out with them, but not many people vacation in Detroit. But I would always get mad at his corny shit and always say like, oh man, if he ever dropped that corny shit and just, if he wanted to, he could just fucking murder everybody. And it's funny, I just made a post about that MGK diss and then that Eminem comeback. And I think he, without trying, even though he took a while to come back, just fucking can murder anybody at any point in time. But
so I've always been a grudgingly distant fan of Eminem's. I recognize that he had technical expertise, but I don't know. For me, like rap music was a code of communication that, I I learned the values and I guess the cultural mores of the streets in a different fashion than when I picked it up from my dad and my uncles and it was kind of like that line between family and the block, and it kind of sat in between there. So Brad Jordan, aka Scarface, is a big brother of mine, even though I've never met him. And you know, Tupac Shakur, I listened to all of his music too. Never really got down with the Biggie thing, but because I was such a fan of Tupac, there were other rappers, you know, especially around the Houston local area that never really got out into the mainstream.
You would always tell me about him.
Like, so K Reno was another one, and he's one of Scarface's, you know, favorite rappers, and he was out of you know, one of those lesser known neighborhoods in Houston with the South Park Coalition. But this last album of Eminem's, I mean, I really was like,
I haven't even heard it.
It's legit.
Again, I am a Siggity W chief who's not tech savvy, dude. As stupid as it sounds, like, I don't download music. I just, whatever's on the radio. And not that I don't know how to download music, obviously, but yeah. I'll give my money to other places. And
so I got a family Apple Music account.
Yeah.
It's $15 a month.
Yeah, no. Believe me, everybody does, right? And it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I still fuck with Pandora and commercials and, you know, my thumbprint radio, and I hear the same, you know, songs over and over again. I've heard good things about it. I want to listen to it, but I kind of, I don't relate to that shit anymore.
No.
And the biggest thing is I don't think these guys are really rapping about stuff that they still do or that's really a part of their life, you know?
So I used to feel that way, but as I've been sharing music with Vicente, and I'll show you what I bought the boys and Liz. I purchased a record player for Liz, so I bought her the Purple Rain album.
Nice.
For Vicente, I got him Kendrick Lamar. And for Enrique, he's
wow.
Have
they heard this music or
yes? So
they're familiar with it.
Yeah, they're familiar with it, but they don't have it in vinyl.
Sure.
So now they do, because like I said, they've got access to anything that they want using Apple Music, but it's different when you hold it, right? And you flip it open and you look at the liner notes. Exactly.
It's like reading a book or, you know, ebook, right?
And so, you know, if it's something I know that they're going to enjoy, I don't mind paying. Like, that Kendrick Lamar album was almost $30.
Really?
Think about that.
Yeah.
I would have paid $15.99 for the CD,
right,
you know, years ago. I'll pay double that for an LP. But you know, but I was one of the major offenders of digital copyright law in Iraq. I mean, I had 160 gigabytes of MP3s, and we were swapping and sharing and jamming like it was nobody's business. But you know, it kind of, you know, disproves the theory that the recording industry was losing out. I mean, they're getting $15 a month from the Castro family for the subscription, and then for every single album that we buy, that's another $25, $30 a pop. So people who pirate music actually spend more money on music than other people, in my opinion.
Right.
I think when you sit down and really do the math. But that's a pretty solid list. Pac, Biggie, Too Short, Bone Thugs and Harmony, and Eminem. Yeah,
I mean, and then, you know, to round off the, you know, the bench players, it was definitely, there was a point where I was listening to Jay-Z and Nas, and they had their old feud going.
Okay.
I was more familiar with Nas's work, and then over the more recent years, right? I've been listening to or been hearing more of Jay-Z's non-commercial stuff, other shit on his album. And, I've grown an appreciation for it. But then again, when I hear him or any of them still on, making music and they're still kind of talking about, some of the same things, it's just like, nah, man, I don't believe you. You need more people. We don't believe you. You know what I mean?
So go listen to Scarface's last album, which was called Deeply Rooted. It's legit. He talks about it's grown man rap music.
Yeah.
Which I can appreciate. I mean, I've been listening to Scarface since like 1985, 86, somewhere around there.
Damn, I was 4 years old. Like the first music I listened to was like EPMD, Lords of the Underground, like underground rap shit that made it to a cassette, right? Like, and I thought it was cool at the time. And music is not a part of my life anymore like it used to be. It used to be a huge part of my life, and I don't know why. I mean, it doesn't motivate me anymore, right?
So what does motivate you?
Money, right? Money for my family, money to have financial freedom, money to not have to worry about stuff that I would worry about growing up, worrying about money, or even, as a young enlisted man. What motivates me as far as money is concerned is to make sure that my kids and their kids and their kids don't have to worry about money. A lot of it has to do with, so on Saturday, I'm taking the girls to open up their savings accounts, right? There's a local Navy Fed not even half a mile from my house where I live in Virginia.
We did that at the Navy Fed on Courtney.
And
for the boys.
The timing was perfect. Melania helped me out with some real estate stuff when I was injured. And not that I'm giving her money from what I earned on that real estate commission, because only a real estate agent can earn money off a real estate deal. But I was more of an allowance, right, for helping me out. And it was her birthday, so her extended family sent her money for her birthday. Victoria would do some chores around the house. She has a little piggy bank, but I want to take them there and have them physically deposit money into an account, right?
Yes.
And know that the money they put in, they're not going to get out. Yesterday, my 12-year-old daughter, she has about like $500 that she's going to be able to deposit, right? I was like, you have more money in your account. You can have more money in your savings account than your mom. You know what I mean? Like jokingly, but it's true. And she was like, well, what about if there's an emergency or something? And I was like, well, then you come to me. I can loan you money and you can earn it to pay me back. You can babysit, you could do whatever, but this money, you're going to save it. And, for now, we're going to save it in, maybe in the next couple of years, we'll figure out how we're going to invest it. And that's just something that I didn't grow up doing, or I wasn't taught about money. And I'm still trying to figure it out. Had I known what I know now, or even a little bit of what I know now, you see a lot of military guys.
Paycheck to paycheck.
Or the opposite, right? They've been in 18, 20 years. Mass sergeants, first sergeants, gunnies, whatever. Nice cars, new houses, vacations. They're like, I could imagine, and I've heard some civilians like, how can they afford that? On a military paycheck. A guaranteed pay. If you've had a guaranteed paycheck for the last 20 years, and you've budgeted, and you've been able to live off of E5, E6 pay for however long, and dual military, or dual income period. I mean, oh my God, who could say they haven't missed a paycheck in 20 years? no professional can say that. I mean, that it's very, very rare to find someone that hasn't been in between jobs at some point, or, you know, who can say that no matter what, I'll always have a roof, you know, as a junior Marine or whatever, a roof over my head and food in my mouth and clothes on my back. All right.
Liz has been the one that's been hit. Well, we have been hit because Liz hasn't been able to land at a job immediately. So for every PCS, there's always a period in which we have to budget and prepare for, because we don't know how long it's going to take for her to get hired. But once she does, she's good. And you know, but her having a master's degree when I was a Lance Corporal has helped, you know, because like when we were living in Monterey, I mean, like I paid by virtue of the fact that I was active duty and I got free base housing and utilities.
You're like, I'm doing my share, girl. What are you going to do?
But she was making back then almost like $60,000, $70,000 a year.
Shit.
In 2001.
Yeah.
You know, we were balling out of control.
Yeah.
But, you know, every time we PCS, it's always there's always that game of, you know, what school districts are hiring and all that. But when we went to the embassy, she got hired on by the State Department, and she really loved that job. But, you know, with the school districts, she takes a hit every single time because not everybody's retirement system is linked up. And then they don't always recognize her years teaching out of other states. So when we go to Texas, she's good. But we go to North Carolina. If we go to North Carolina, they won't recognize all her Texas or her California years.
Just the time she did there.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the fact that she's teaching overseas now, not every state's gonna accept that. She has to get hired back into the DOD system or the DODEA system. Yeah. And so, you know, she takes a hit at every PCS. But now she's putting in for assistant principal positions. I think she's about done with the classroom. You know, she's been doing it for 24, 25 years.
Yeah. So she's ready for the administrative level or the...
She's been ready for the administrative level. But the problem is that they're more inclined to hire within the school district than somebody that they know is going to leave in 5 years or 4 years or even 2.5 years, because they're going to miss out on that. I mean, think about it. If you know, who am I going to put as a team leader?
Yeah. Right?
The guy that's going to retain. And that's how they view it. And it's probably illegal if she were able to prove that.
Right.
But, you know, good luck with that. She's just happy to have a job and a steady paycheck.
Yeah. So back to the question, right? Like what motivates me? And, you know, I said money, but really it's my time. So it ties into the money, right? To be able to have money however I earn it and whenever I earn it, but I need it to allow me to have time, whether that be time to work out, time to sleep in, time to take my kids to school and back, you know, be there for every game or father-daughter dance or whatever. That's what motivates me, right? So it probably sounded kind of shallow when I said that money motivates me. All the other things I said about money and teaching my kids about money and making sure they don't worry about money, and, you know, college is, yes, you're going to go to college if you want to, which you're going to want to, but, you know, don't worry about how it's going to get paid for. It'll get paid for. When you get married, you know, hopefully the guy's parents or, you know, whoever's parents can help. If not, you know, traditionally, right, it should be me paying for it. I'll be ready for it. But it's the time that is worth more than money to me. Unfortunately, it just seems like with the 3 girls and the standard of living that we're used to, it's going to take money. You know what I mean? And so the time and the money and then the career and girls. The career, the military career at least, they're not lining up right now because now we also have distance, right? So I'm a geo bachelor during the week. Doing a lot of, I've always driven because I've always wanted to live outside the city in the suburbs in a better school district and be able to afford a house or whatever. So my time is what motivates me, right? But it comes at a cost. Money, what I want to do, and then kind of what's left in between. So.
Do you listen to any other podcasts?
I don't, man. I've been really narrow-minded when it comes to, lately especially, when it comes to reading and listening to stuff. I think a lot of it has to do with my lack of time, right? Since I've lived in California back in 2013, on average, I'll spend 3 hours a day in a car, right?
It's perfect time for a podcast. What do you listen to?
News radio. I try to listen to music. It's all shitty, right? And I can't do it.
Try the Jocko podcast. You'll like that one.
I should, or audiobooks or something. Because again, you know,
I do listen to a lot. I do my professional reading through audiobooks.
Yeah. You're right. No, you're totally right, man. I should. But I've been like, if I don't have to read it, I don't want to read it. If I don't have to listen to it, I don't want to listen to it. I need to break that cycle, and I'm trying, right? I have to finish up a degree before I get out, or else, you know, I'll be the biggest hypocrite, right? Telling these junior Marines, you know, maximize your education, this, that, and the other, and you know, I don't have a degree put together, so. It shouldn't take me long to do it, but I need to do it. And I'm racing against the clock now with my timeline of getting out in a couple years. But, you know, I hear some of the other podcasts or some of your posts and other people's posts, and, you know, where you guys are talking about some deep philosophical shit, or, you know, ancient proverbs or you know, different, like you name it, right? Like the poem you wrote out, you know,
If by Rudyard Kipling.
If, like, and I'm like, holy fuck, dude. So those are the kind of rooms where I'd be really timid about moving in, like when we start, you know, talking about different authors and different concepts that are, you know, not the concept itself, but, you know, volumes on concepts and by different authors. And I'm not well versed in that. And I probably change the subject pretty quickly with, you know, some stupid joke or something. But so I need to develop myself better and more in that aspect, I think.
Start with The Art of Manliness. It's a website where
it tells you like what books you should read and
so they'll actually have like they call it manvotionals or whatever, but there's a good like platform that you can start from in small tidbits, and it has everything in there from instructions.
It's like the cliff notes of all the shit you should know.
Exactly. It's exactly what it is. But it's one website. The guy
Art of Manliness.
The Art of Manliness.
I'll check it out.
That's you'd like that.
Yeah.
Right. Especially being in a estrogen intense environment like you are on a regular basis. It'll give you a little respite in that sense. But let me ask you, at what point in your career did you begin to actively start to seek out mentors? Or did you?
I think I've always wanted it, but I don't think it was ever there really. And not in the sense of a mentor I meet with weekly or monthly, and, you know, he gives me things to work on and I come back with my progress or my thoughts, or, you know, hey, you should read this, you know, you should read that, you should, I want you to tell me your thoughts on this. I don't think I've ever really had a mentor
in that regard,
in any regard. Wow. Period. My grandfather, right? And now on a non-professional sense, you know, my grandfather was probably my biggest mentor. My mom, right? My mom, being a strong woman, and, you know, for the most part, raising me as a single mom. But professionally, I kind of feel like I have more mentors now by proxy, right? A lot of the guys in our community, in our field, that are just brilliant, forward thinkers, deep thinkers.
Who would you put on that? Like, so instead of your top 5 rappers, who's your top 5 master guns? And
oh man,
top 5. Let's go.
I'm not one to dick ride, man. You know that. So I'm not gonna. No, I mean, again, really, being an I department, it's pretty intimidating, right? You're getting the best from all the Ock fields.
It's like Jim Bush said. It's an honor to work with the best of the best.
Oh man, you're in Hell's Kitchen, right? And everybody's trying to cook up the fucking main course, and Sam Carter, John Scoggins, Keith Terberry, in 0211 side, Ann Sagabill. I mean, you name it. Yeah, everybody there, they're on their shit. Roy Hall, these guys are just brilliant, and excellence breeds excellence, and we've all heard that. But so a lot of those guys they're phenomenal, and a lot of the ones that still have longevity in the Marine Corps, it's good. It's good for the Marine Corps. We absolutely need it. Some of the guys that got out, again, for other reasons, it's a shame we couldn't keep them in. But so yeah, even some junior Marines that I've come across, and a lot of officers too. That brings me to one of my recommendations, kind of based off of your interviewees that you've had on the show. I really think you need to get an intel officer. It doesn't have to be the SIGINT type, right? But any intel officer that's ever worked at a radio battalion or a letter company or whatever.
So I've got one episode I haven't released yet. It's Captain Shin. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt, trained with me and the boys up in Okinawa. He'd done a tour at Radio Battalion, 3rd Radio Battalion, and did a tour at Force Recon. And now he's going through EWS. Sharp young captain. But just a good Marine, and a brother. I haven't released his yet, but that's my first commissioned officer. I've got a couple of individuals I've got in mind. I got my eyes on General Henry. I got my eyes on.
Oh man, I gotta talk your ear off, man. You're gonna have to do all kinds of editing. Just sit there and let him talk.
Yeah, I want to get Russ Mead.
Same. Yeah, you're gonna have to play it in 75% speed.
Slow. So chop and screw that.
I think there's. I kind of feel like there's not like a shadow government when it comes to the officers, but when it comes to an officer enlisted relationship, and I'm going to use within a radio battalion or a letter company or something, I kind of get the feeling that there is an appreciation, a real appreciation for the enlisted, and senior enlisted at that, or there's a feeling, an attitude that I'll let them speak, they can say their part, and then we're going to go in our little breakout session and go ahead and make a decision, right, with or without the input.
At what level? At the battalion level? At the headquarters level?
At the battalion level, headquarters level, company level. So you name it, right? Half of it, I think, is due to a bad experience with a senior enlisted at some point. And the other half, I think there's like this secret cult culture where these guys are extremely brilliant, right? I have a lot of respect for Marine Corps officers. I think they're extremely talented, bright guys. For the most part, composed, cool, collect. And not that enlisted or senior enlisted aren't, but it's hard to put it in words, right? This feeling that all the observations that I'm making. I think if you get, and maybe I can make some recommendations offline, for some guys for you to interview, and maybe I can probably better phrase my observations and kind of turn them into questions. I think there might be something that is holding us back from no shit, instead of having officer and PMEs, enlisted PMEs all the time, one or two combined ones. There's something more behind it than, officer corps, enlisted corps. And I don't know if it's instilled in them, instilled in us. We've all had bad experiences with one another.
Yeah, I could see that.
But I really feel like that's the key to unlocking like the full potential of the unit, of the practice, of the community, right? We need to really understand each other on some different levels and, kind of get from their perspective what we're lacking, right? And, let them hear it from us as well. But it'd be a battle of the minds and who can fight their case better, right? That may be who wins, but that may not be the truth, right? Maybe they're just ready or able to fight, present their case better. But it's two different aspects of the job, right. What their roles and responsibilities are and what ours are, and so that's something I've kind of been thinking about and noticing and observing. It could be all bullshit, right? It could be all smoke and mirrors, and it's not even really a thing. But I don't think we'll know until we get some candid interviews with some of the officers that have been around for a while in the units that we spoke of, and ask them, pour them a couple drinks, and see what
get down to the heart of
what's in the Kool-Aid, right? That they've been drinking. Yeah, or maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's nothing.
So what's in Vince Quinteros' Netflix queue? No time for TV?
No. I just started watching Netflix 2 months ago when I moved up to Maryland. I've never had Netflix or access to it. My roommate doesn't have cable. I swear to God.
So it's like game on. You have all this content to consume.
It's been Narcos.
Narcos?
Yeah.
So you're on season what?
3, middle of it. So basically they dismantled the Cali cartel,
right?
And
so that's my world, man. I've gotten more than my fair share of experience with counter narcotics operations and studying the history and then teaching that history, right, for a period of 4 years, and then going and putting it into practice later on. Not only in my time in San Antonio, but my time in Santo Domingo. Those transnational criminal organizations were our bread and butter. Mm-hmm. Part of I was the DoD representative to the Law Enforcement Working Group, and got to coordinate with DEA, HSI, FBI, you name it. That world captivates me, but I'm excited that this next season goes into Mexico.
Yeah. So does the Queen of the South, does that go into it as well?
Yeah, but that's much.
It's like a one-off, or
that's more like the novella depiction of it. I like the way that Narcos is kind of like skirted the line between fiction and fantasy, or fiction and reality rather, and they did a pretty good job with the portrayal of Escobar. Now the agents that are working the case, obviously they've been dramatized to increase the appeal to the masses, but there's a lot there, right? And not everybody knows this. I think you do. Enrique's named after Enrique Camarena, the Marine DEA.
Oh, the one
agent that was tortured and killed in Mexico by the Guadalajara cartel, right? So that's the cartel that they're slated to depict
in the next season.
Oh,
wow.
Well, that cartel, once it was split up, the capos or the under structure, the underlying structure beneath the Guadalajara cartel ended up becoming the main players that we have to this day.
Yeah.
So, it really has been like a Game of Thrones kind of thing, because you have, the House Targaryen falls, and so all of these other houses rise up and try to assert their dominance. And it just so happened to be kind of the Sinaloa Federation that was really kind of running the show for a while, depending on who you ask. But, Chapo's gone. So he's kind of like Robert Baratheon, and so then now everything's kind of up in the air of who's in charge of things. I've kind of being out in the Pacific, I've lost track of it. I still keep track of some of my colleagues and peers that I worked with previously, but it's one of those things where you never. Once you become so intimately involved in an area of operations, you never really let it go.
Yeah.
And I think at some point in time, when it's all said and done, to get a postgraduate degree in either Latin American studies or criminal justice or something like that, and maybe teach at that level.
Yeah.
Maybe at an NIU or something. I could see myself doing that somewhere down the road, because I've walked the walk and I could talk the talk with the best of them, and I think I'd have a lot to offer in that regard from a postgraduate education to the target audience. Just because, like I said, I've had more than my fair share of counter narcotics experience, but
you're too young to be thinking about that just yet. Though.
Yeah. I'm that's way down the road, but it's a pipe dream.
Yeah.
So let me ask you. A full-time space, I put you in a smoke pit to sit down and talk to Sergeant Quinteros and give you 30 minutes. What do you tell him?
Oh, what do I tell Sergeant Quinteros at the time?
Yeah, Master Guns Quinteros just walks up and just says, "What's going on, Hard Charger?"
Yeah. Oh, man. Really just cherish every moment, right? Every job, every encounter, whether it be with organization, an agency, a group of people or individuals. Cherish every moment, learn as much as you can from that entity. And really, other than doing the things that the Marine Corps expects out of you, like try to branch off, right? Try to be more of an outside the box thinker. I think I did a pretty good job of being an outside the box thinker, but really, really go out on a limb for something you believe in, right? Whether it be an individual, again, or a group, or a way of doing things. I guess be more adventurous and take more risk when it comes to something you believe in. If that's advocating for, certain TTPs or certain decisions on a battlefield or in garrison or in policy, everywhere that my career has taken me, I think I've done a good job of fighting for what's right, but, not really going after what I really wanted, or what I really thought was best for, not really the community, but for that unit, for that group, for that mission, for that deployment. So, other than that, I'm fulfilled. I've had a fulfilled career where I wouldn't change many things. I would change a couple things, but not many. If I had the time, between sergeant, more time between sergeant and say master sergeant, where I was still somewhat operational, I wish there was more time in between to do more tours. Doing my Ditra tour took me out of the game, like I said, for 5 years. I would never give it back because that was one of my best tours, and I learned so much during that tour and was exposed to so many different things and just had a really good time and met some really good people doing it. But I wish I had a couple other, maybe 2 or 3 more Radman tours under my belt. Maybe something, more along the MARSOC side or the special operations side. I just ran out of time,
That happens, huh?
Yeah. So, not Sergeant Quinteros, but Sergeant whoever, like, cherish the time, man. You're not going to have enough time to do everything you want to do, and you will have regrets, right? So enjoy your time, cherish your time, and make the most out of it. Learn as much as you can learn, influence as much as you can influence, and take notes, so that way you can, that's probably the main thing. Like, I wish I would have kept a journal of every single thing that I did, within the limits of, classification or whatever, or, maybe had a classified journal, but being able to recall specific every day of every operation that I've been in or deployment or whatever. I have a horrible memory, and I've forgotten a lot of great things, details of great things that I've done that I wish I could remember, whether they be something as small as a conversation with somebody, or whether it be, part of an operation or part of training for an operation. A lot of my memories come to me, they're sparked by something else that happens, right? Like, I wish I could read a book of everything that I did and retell it, in excruciating detail, And actually, there's a Marine colonel who was a company commander with LAR when we were out in Iraq, and starting in like February, he'll do like day one and a fucking Facebook post, 500 words long of day one, crossing the LZ, the company commander, called all the battalion commander called the company commander. I mean, he goes into detail, and like every year he does, every day that we were out, was like 4 months total from the time we crossed the line of departure to the time we retrograded back when with the quote unquote war was declared over. And I ran into him like 6 years ago in Azerbaijan, in Baku at the embassy. He was the DAO.
Marine attaché?
Yeah. And I was there as the DITRO, Defense Threat Reduction Office, staff NCOIC. I was at his house, right? Because he from the time he was a lieutenant, back in 2002, 2003 to 2014, like, he gained weight, but he'd filled out. He didn't have glasses. He looked completely different. I'm in his, how the embassy guys live. They live like kings in his mansion, and I'm looking at all his awards and tanks, this, that, and the other, all his pictures, and I was like, LAR. And I see a picture of us in Iraq. I was like, it was a trip. It was a fucking trip. It was with Colonel Ray. At the time, he was the most decorated Marine officer in the Marine Corps. He was a battalion commander for 2nd LAR. And I was like, hey, sir, where'd you get this picture from? It's like, I was out there. Here I am right here. So I spent, because he was pretty much the battalion commander's, wingman. We were always with Battalion Main. We were always with the battalion commander, providing INW for the Battalion Main. And I was like, holy shit, I was on the Muse team, and so we still keep in contact. It's pretty crazy. That it took that long, and, in that setting, So kind of back to my original point, man, just if I was able to do a journal or, recall and recap every moment of my career, I think it'd be...
Keep a journal.
From here on out?
No, I'm saying...
Yeah, keep a journal. Keep a journal. Or unless you have a fucking photographic memory, probably Ted Delaplane, who can write books about shit that,
So yeah, he just recently released a book.
I saw that he released it. I didn't...
The Voodoo, I forgot what he called it. But he sent me... And now that it's released, I don't feel inappropriate for
sharing.
For sharing.
Are you depicted in one of his?
I am. He writes what it was like to first meet me as Sergeant Castro. And it blew my mind because you think you, right? But then when guys who you love, trust, respect, admire, enjoy the company of, describe you to someone else, or in this case to the reader, to everybody. Yeah. It changes. It's just an interesting perspective.
Accurate, or did you have anybody else read it? Did you share it with anybody?
I shared it with Liz.
Yeah, what did she say?
She enjoyed it, but I think, for me, because that was my first SIGINT deployment in Haiti, and I didn't know how different it was going to be, but I knew it was going to be different. It was one of those things where.
So do you think, did he describe other things from that encounter, or? So I guess what I ask is, do you think it was all from memory? Did he keep a journal?
Well, I know he kept a journal. He kept a journal. He was journaling the entire time that we were together.
Yeah. He's probably been doing that. I mean, especially being a writer. I mean, he's probably does that. Every day he writes.
He's just one of those guys, man. I mean,
how much writing do you do, or how good is your account or memory of your career? Or do you ever take time to write something down? Like if you had a significant encounter, do you take time to write it down or make a note about it? Or
so I've gotten better at that over the years. I keep a journal. At a certain point during my time in DAO, I started documenting a lot of shit.
Unofficially?
Both. Just because it was one of those things where I felt like I couldn't trust everyone around me. And I wanted to make sure that I was being on the level, and I had memorandums for record on standby if it came down to it. But I found it. Jack left the office and walked down the passageway to the platoon spaces. He opened the door and walked over to Sergeant Fidel Mendez.
Nice.
Jack had printed out a list of names sent to him by the battalion operations officer, Major Frank Tetherer.
Nice.
Eggerer. Fidel Mendez was going to be one of his team leaders and his only sergeant. In fact, the list had dismayed him a little, showing how junior his Marines were. There was no staff non-commissioned officer in charge assigned yet. He would try to push for Gunnery Sergeant Qualls to fill that position. Sergeant Mendez was sitting at a desk with a stack of papers in front of him. He had jet black hair, cut short on the sides, but left a little long on top. Nice. His skin was a deep olive. He was wearing glasses and reading intently. He looked up as Jack approached, standing when he reached the desk. "Good morning, sir," he said, standing at attention. Jack reached out to shake the Marine's hand. "Good morning, Sergeant. I'm Jack Lewis." Returning the handshake, Sergeant Mendez smiled. "Good to meet you, sir. Sit down, let's talk." Sergeant Mendez sat back down, and Jack took a seat in a 1950s era metal office chair next to the desk. "Have you heard of ACM?" "Yes, sir. It's the Air Contingency MAGTF." Mendez pronounced the last word, MAGTF. "Well, it looks like the ACM will be standing up, and I've been assigned as the commander of the Radbin detachment." Jack handed the roster of Marines to Mendez. These are the Marines assigned to the det. It looks like you're going to be my senior team leader. Mendez took the list and glanced at it. He then picked up a piece of paper from his desk. Jack could see it was a printout like his own. I've seen the roster, sir. He handed Jack a copy of the roster back to him. I've been looking at the names and thinking about who's good at what. Good, you're ahead of me then. What about our equipment? Well, sir, I sent Lance Corporal Sims to the supply locker to start looking at what we have. Jack was impressed. Sergeant Mendez was obviously a self-starter. This is definitely good news. Perfect. What do you think of the Marines on the list? Well, sir, it looks like we have enough of the right sort of people to do our job, but none of these Marines speak Haitian. Have you requested linguists? Actually, Jack had not even thought about that yet. I'll work that from my end, he said. What I need from you is to get these Marines together so we can get to know each other and start getting other tasks going. And I want to see the equipment. Roger that, sir. What time do you want to meet? Jack glanced at his watch. It was getting close to lunchtime. How about 1400? Sounds good. Where? We'll do it at the skiff over at Battalion. A skiff was a sensitive compartment and information facility, pronounced skiff, where the top secret signals intelligence work of the battalion was done. Sounds good, sir. We'll be there. Anything you need from me, killer? Jack asked as he stood. No, sir. All right. I'll see you at 1400 then, as Jack walked towards the door. Sergeant Mendez stopped him. Sir? Jack turned as he said, yeah? When are we leaving? Jack paused for a moment, deciding what to tell the young sergeant. I have no idea, he said finally. Sergeant Mendez nodded, and Jack turned around and walked through the door. So that was Teague's description of our first interaction.
How accurate is it?
It's pretty spot on. But to hear like the way in which he described my mannerisms, and I mean it was good, and it was good to hear how somebody who I was looking to for guidance and direction. I mean, he was a young sergeant, and he wasn't a boot lieutenant. He'd done some deployments
right
by that time too, and we didn't know each other before the deployment, but man, we spent a lot of time on the flight line, kind of chopping it up and getting to know each other one-on-one. And I remember our conversations, diverging towards like books that we'd read and philosophers that we'd read, and our take on key moments in history and religion, and for me, I was like, man, this is a really good dude. I'm gonna enjoy spending this time with him, and I really did. And he's probably one of the officers I've stayed closest to over my time in. He's a deep and close personal friend, and we'll never lose contact. Matter of fact, when I was up here for advanced course, I ended up crashing with him for an extended weekend and getting to know his family and his wife, and he's got a beautiful family, and I was glad that he was able to come back in the way that he did, because losing him would have been a grave mistake.
Yeah.
But I only wish that I only got to deploy with him once. So I wish we'd have had more time together. Yeah. But is there anything else you wanted to push out to the audience?
Oh man, no. For the most part, again, with the players, the heavy hitters still in the game, both at the senior enlisted and the middle enlisted, and a lot of junior enlisted guys that have made impressions on me over the last 4 or 5 years. I have no doubt that when I leave, or even now, that our community is in good hands, and it will be in good hands for the future to come. And you guys, I think you guys have earned the respect of the community, writ large, and say there is this mythical rift between enlisted and officers, or civilians, and then military, DOD, whatever. I think when it's all said and done, everybody's after the same goal, and strong leadership on all ends is going to be the key to bringing everybody in together and kind of getting that comprehensive knowledge of what you do, what I do, what we do, and what our objective is. So, yeah, I wish I had more time, man. I'm telling you, I really do. But that's it. I look forward to to hearing future interviews. Again, I think I could probably gen up a good list of 4 or 5 dudes I would like to personally hear on the show. And I'm sure you have a whole list of people. So yeah, man, I just want to commend you on doing this, continuing to do it, and hopefully you'll have your own XM channel one day, or the Sammy Castro Experience or some bullshit. But no, man, I appreciate it.
All right, brother.
Thanks for forcing me to do this.
yeah, I didn't force you, but
yeah, you
I appreciate you exhibiting the courage to come on.
And with that, we're out.